Question number 1. Are directors impressed by action music or beautiful music? Well, you're probably not going to like to hear this, but action music mostly is what I'm going to get out there. It just has to do with education. If you got, a more educated person, maybe they came from a middle upper class, had a great education, studied, film and the classical arts, then they might have more of an appreciation for the aesthetics of beauty, I talked reels last time. Is it wise to include film audio in samples? You mean like from the movie? I have done that, and I don't think it makes sense if it's just the audio. Either give them the clip with the movie or just the music, because they get that writing music for movies is cool. Like they make movies, which is kind of cooler to them anyway. So they don't think it's cool for your music to have those things in there because, we think that's cool, and they're like, wow, this is transporting me to a place that I normally don't go as a music listener. It's like from a movie. Well, they don't care about that, okay? Yeah. Is it tough transitioning from music producer to scoring? I don't think so. I think it's a big help, but it depends on if you mean music producer who doesn't have any classical training to scoring. But, in my case, what I think of it as far as a music producer is, producing records, mixing, maybe mastering, working in studios, being a music producer. Those skills are going to help you. You want to have as much knowledge as you can with some classical training, yeah. So it's positive. More knowledge is a positive. Studying film scoring at a college level. Yeah, it's great mentioned in my last video, which again, if you haven't been on my YouTube, it's in the link on my profile. But in my profile is a couple links. One of them is to my YouTube. There is the last Periscope we did, the last masterclass discussion. Telling you about that, I lost what your question was. So let's move on to another question, or just type that in again. For it, super specific, using the E-flat clarinet. What's it good for? Soloistic lines, blending the woodwinds. If you have a couple different woodwinds going on, you can probably use it to help blend the flute section with the clarinet section a little bit better. And it's good for runs and noodling. It's quite agile, and it's kind of like a wooden piccolo in a sense. So it's useful for that blending if you need it. Do I start with a melody in a score or a progression texture? Wooden piccolo, I like that. I have a technique that I use for my scoring, and I think it's going to be best illustrated in a Google Hangout, because then I can show you on the screen. But I'm going to go generally into it, and I'll talk about how I start. Also, as a matter of fact, for exactly what your question was, you should go to Secrets of Film Scoring on the internet. And there's one class there specifically about exactly what you just said, an entire class, and it's really detailed and really great, and goes into depth on creating your themes, doing score analysis. So check that out. But basically, I will say that my technique is the first thing that I do. This is sort of the Evans technique. Okay, I've taken classes, I've read all the books. I know a lot of different methods out there from USC, UCLA, and all the books over the last 50 years. So all those methodologies. I'm not sure that I do anything that specifically any of those guys ever did. After having worked on so many pictures, I developed my own sort of system. So the very, very first thing I do after you've spotted the film, okay, in approaching a scene, is I find the tempo of the scene. And I don't just mean like on a metronome. I watch the scene, I feel the pace of the scene. How you doing? Nice to have you back. I feel the pace of the scene, the breathing, the steps, the cutting, the action, and I just play it again, and I just try to, the first thing I try to do is find the rhythm of the scene. And the amazing thing is, once I've got it, if I put that into my sequencer, the bar lines, by some strange, amazing coincidence, line up to everything I want to hit. It's unbelievable. Finding that tempo is so important. And you want to get that as kind of a second nature. So, you practice that a lot. Can you ever over-compose while scoring? Do you strictly state guidelines via the director? It's easy to over-compose. Go to my SoundCloud, look up SoundCloud Evan Evans, and take a listen to a cue called Tyler Can't. Towards the end of it, all these trumpets come in and stuff. When I first gave that to the director, it was so massive and blockbuster, it sounded like Armageddon was about to hit. When it's just this moment where this boy with a crossbow is having a hard time killing somebody who he needs to kill. And it was so gargantuan. I believe it really could have gone there, but the director said, it's too much. So I scaled it back a little. And really, I didn't scale it back too much. I just went into Pro Tools and kind of like blended it down a little bit. But, so yeah, you can overscore. Who inspired me to do film scoring? Okay, well, for the actual moment of truth was when I was 9 years old. I was watching an Alfred Hitchcock film. I don't recall the name. I think it was The 39 Steps. And there was a shot on a cliff at night of a car in foggy, just like coming around the road, and it slipped off the road and it fell down the cliff off screen. Okay, and we're still on the cliff, but there's no more car. Moments later, the music goes boom, and I realized, oh wow, music is communicating drama. It's communicating that car just crashed at the bottom of that cliff. That was the moment that I knew for the rest of my life I wanted to do film scoring. But later, I got inspired by just the masters, Jerry Goldsmith. Yeah, I wasn't particularly influenced by John Williams like a lot of you are, because I just felt like his music is sort of just a refashioned music of everything else we've already heard in classical music. I sort of reattached myself to composers who had something very new and original to show. Just because I'm a learning type of person, and I want to know about new stuff. And so those are the guys that really get my heart beating, I'm sure if Stravinsky was still alive, he'd be John Williams. Or if, Holst was still alive, he'd be John Williams. But, I've heard it, I've studied it, I've absorbed Prokofiev, Stravinsky, all the masters. And, I like guys that have something new that they're doing. So for me, that was Bernard Herrmann and Jerry Goldsmith in film scoring. My favorite composer in film scoring has got to be Jerry Goldsmith. It's just got to be. Jerry was one of the only composers that wanted to be a film composer. Until like James Horner in the late 70s, 80s, you didn't really want to be a film composer. You just fell into it. John Williams was a session pianist. And all these guys just sort of fell into it. And they were conducting a score or whatnot. And then they needed to write a part. And then eventually now they're writing. Well, Jerry was one of the first people that really wanted his music to be accompanied with drama. He wanted it to be accompanied with picture. He wanted to be a picture composer, And that makes a big difference when you listen to his music. Knowing that, you notice, amazing depth about him and his scores that you don't get necessarily with the others, because he's coming from the position of not caring about the music first. He's coming from the position of caring about the drama first and being the person who can facilitate that in his voice, and then maybe with some mastery that he's learned over the years, that he's developed over the years. Yeah, Islands in the Stream is Jerry Goldsmith's favorite score. He told me. It's my favorite score as well of his. And I was pretty happy to find out that that is his favorite score as well. Jerry Goldsmith recommended scores that I recommend are Planet of the Apes, obviously, if you haven't heard that, Basic Instinct, Hollow Man, The Edge. I just bumped the camera. You know, there's at least 25 iconic level scores by Jerry. The Omen, Alien. Yeah, Alien, I mean, Alien, there's like 2 or 3 good cues, and then the rest is like just really well written cues. Okay, so I would call that like his second or third best. So if we're getting to be snotty Jerry Goldsmith fans here, then yeah. But Alien is absolutely, you know, unparalleled. You know, no one else could do that. It was specific to him. That way, you know, somebody else could. Beefing up the low end, making film orchestra sound massive. Trombones, cellos, those two. You know, and I'm not talking tubas and contrabasses. The trombones and the cello section are what make the orchestra sound big. Now I want you to listen up. If you haven't taken Stephen Scott Smalley's course, he really harps on this and drills it into you. And I'm going to tell you it's absolutely true. The woodwinds make your music sound smaller. Okay? Because well, I don't know what it is. It's just that because you're using the woodwinds, it's like sprites in the forest or fairies are flying around, and the woodwinds just, they make it sound like a smaller work. If you use the woodwinds in a different fashion, or possibly not at all, I've done that as an experiment on some scores, you'll find with the brass and the strings, it sounds much bigger, more epic in scale, larger, more blockbuster size. If you're going to double things with woodwinds, it actually diminishes the size of the sound, the mass. So I have to be careful what I recommend. Like I would recommend VSL for just having your core kind of ability, your core capability, and then augmenting that with, you know, whatever VSL really couldn't do well, which is, in my opinion, the problem with the Vienna Symphonic Library is it's the Viennese sound. It's very controlled. It's very disciplined, controlled sound. LA musicians are the opposite. They're as wild and as expressive as they come. They go from 0 to 11, okay, in the words of Spinal Tap, with everything. And you know what? Because dialogue is in the mid-range, film scoring is all about the extremes. You need to be writing high and low and not so much in the mids. You know, so VSL doesn't help a lot in film scoring, but you know, it's a good core foundation. And depending on how much money you have and how powerful your system is, you know, I recommend you start there because you need that as a foundation. I missed that last question. It looked interesting. I recommend avoiding free VST sounds found online from unfamiliar sources. Yeah, they contain viruses. How long did it take you to learn Lass? 2 or 3 days, because, you know, the first day is all about setup and loading all those different groups. And during that first day, you're balancing all those different, you know, sections against each other, giving them proper reverbs and everything. Second day is tweaking them, tweaking their settings and their parameters so that they play better on the keyboard, and maybe give you a little bit more expression options than they give you by default. Like, you know, you might want to add layers or something. And the third day is practicing, and then you're done. If any of you didn't hear at the beginning, go to my profile. There's a YouTube link there, and you can go to the YouTube and watch our previous classes. You mentioned post as being the prime time to pursue a gig. At that point, phone, email, mail. Yeah, the best time to go after movies is, you know, right after they're done production, because if you call while they're in production, It's all hands on deck during that time, so you're not going to be able to get through, you're not going to get any clear communication, and nobody's going to be really telling you any previous masterclass video, yeah. So you want to get them after they finish shooting. Now they've got all this footage and they're going to be getting edit suites, you know, and setting all that stuff up. It's going to take 2 weeks for them to transition. Then it can take, it depends on if it was a bigger production or a smaller production, but it can take a month to 3 or 4 months before they lock. So right in there, that's your window to actually be relevant. Or, you know, you start developing something before they go shooting, pre-production. But that's really going to be just like, you know, hearsay, neither here nor there. It's going to be you're a guy who's interested in scoring their film that they haven't even shot yet. So it's a little bit not really genuine of you, you know, to say I really want to score your film because it doesn't even exist yet, okay? So it doesn't come off right. You know, after they shot it, they're all right. They're way hyped up from everything that they just saw, and they, in their mind, have the movie already cut in their head. When you call and you say, I want to score your film, they know what film you're talking about. Even if you haven't seen it, they do know it exists. Aside from broad strokes in LA, that's all I got. Sorry, re-ask that question if you can. Tap your screen every now and then. Let me know you're still there. Brown hearts, green hearts. How do I land paying gigs? Well, you know, there's the catch-22 of you've got to have scored a movie in order to get a movie. You can start on student films to, like, you know, build up proof and evidence that you can work on a large-scale film and do good work, and then show that as proof that you can do their bigger film that's paying. And student films pay too, by the way. They just pay a lot less and are worse pictures. But you got to pay your dues, you know. So, question number 4, self-funding, Kickstarter for recording your own music. Who is your target audience? Fans? I've never done that. So, but I mean, you know, fans of your film music, you know, would give you money to do that. Can I make hearts? Nah, doesn't let me do that. And like my head would go. Question 5. What is my daily composing routine? Okay, well, this could be looking forward to your Google Hangout, seeing your setup. Okay, that'll be great, yeah. Does it do any good to send a demo CDMA to studio music department? Not really. Sending your demo to the music department is like sending your demo to the devil. You don't want to be in communication with anybody who has any interest in scoring that picture, or any brothers or friends connected who want to score that picture. Because guess where your music's going to end up? They're not going to tell you it's the trash can, but it's probably the trash can. Do you start with the same instrument set for each film, or is it a case by case? Mail to the trash. Kerplunk. It's you have a template, okay? You know, you have all your sounds up. Are you talking about as far as conceptually, or are you talking about in your setup? Oh, okay. No, I clear my brain. You know, I start from zero with every project. You know, it depends on what that particular project needs. I'm working on a film right now, which I believe I would like to score with just all strings. And I need to do some scary aleatoric writing in the high end for one particular character and through line in the film. And then I need to do some like breathing, monstrous kind of sounds with some of the low end. I need to do some tender moments, and I might have solo cello or viola or something like that in there for another character. And I can get a lot out of that. But as you know, as I continue to watch the film, I've thought about adding a young girl's voice humming for one of the characters, some chaotic synth sounds to help. I need some possibly brass, low brass, to increase the size and threat of the monstrous sound that the low end of the strings would be giving off. So, these are things that happen. You start somewhere and you build from there. No, palette doesn't define a composer's voice. Go listen to The Day the Earth Stood Still by Bernard Herrmann. 4 pianos, a theremin, and what else is there in there? And he's recording backwards and overdubbing. And that's Bernard Herrmann, okay? So study Bernard Herrmann if you're not sure who that is. We're talking about the master of film scoring. There's nobody that offered more. What was that question about Thomas Newman? All right, Dallas, thanks for popping in. Must have been your lunch break at school. Do you compose for production libraries? And if so, what is your approach when composing? He uses a lot of the same palette from score to score. About Thomas Newman. Right. It's not really that it's the palette, and that's not entirely true also. What was that movie he did? It was like a crime mystery set in Hollywood a long time ago, maybe 20 years ago. And he was doing all kinds of interesting sounds. It's not really that lately he's been doing kind of the same sound. But that's good because, he found a voice that he wants to harp on over and over and be known for. He's got his legacy to worry about. So, But yeah, you don't have to do that. You can, Bernard Herrmann had quite the original voice, but, you can get to the point where you can communicate who you are and have a voice no matter what instrument it's on. Do you compose for production libraries? And if so, what is your approach when composing? Thank you for asking again, Adam. I have excess cues that I can license off to libraries, and I have done that. But I don't specifically write for libraries. That's something some people do. I have a tip on that. Libraries like beds. They like emotion beds. They like mood beds. So you sort of stay with whatever it is for a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And then you just switch or you give them another track. If your music is like constantly changing and going in left, right, and all these different directions, you're really going to have a hard time fitting that into anything. So if you want to be successful in library music, that's what you need to supply is mood beds. So it can be action, it can be, scary Batman thing. It doesn't have to be ambient, mood therapy beds. I'm not talking about that. It can be full-on film scoring tracks, but they just need to be basically harping on that same quality for a long time. That doesn't mean looping, okay? They got to be really interesting and great music to make it into anything decent, any quality production. I have not yet landed a paying composing job. Does it do any good to create mock scores? You mean to show that you can do the level of work that they're looking for? If you haven't done a paying gig before, but you feel confident enough that you can do those gigs and that you're an accomplished composer at your rig, that go ahead and ask, if you're in that situation, then you should go ahead and ask to write to a scene. Wiggle your way in to getting that on various projects that you're calling up, and they're like, send your demo, and you say, yeah, I would love to send my demo, but in addition, could I write to a particular scene in the film and really show what I'm thinking for this picture? And probably 4 out of 5 are not going to be able to help you there, but 20% of them or 10% of them are going to be able to send you a 1-minute clip. Now that probably won't happen on a bigger studio picture, but it can happen on any independent film where they have that freedom. Or perhaps, they just give you the script and you write to the script, but that's a really long shot. Which project has been your personal favorite to work on in your career and why? You know what? I've worked on over 60 films, and I go to my IMDb pros all the time because I don't remember all the movies I've worked on, okay? So I'm just going to say that I really liked working on The Poker Club. It has my most signature sound, moving forward. And it's also a good film, so I can recommend people watch it. It's also a great soundtrack. People can listen to it. It's a good score. It's one of my best works. So I would say The Poker Club was a great experience. But there's a lot of movies that I've worked on that I'm not recalling right now. But I can't really remember all of them. Night of the Templar was another one. What's your approach in scoring a long scene with many different things happening? Well, the nice thing about large cues is they're not small. The thing about a small cue is, in a strange way, it almost takes as long to score a small cue as it does a large cue. So if you have like 20 small cues, it's a lot of work. If you have one long cue, for some reason it tends to be easier, because you can sort of see when you're writing, you sort of sketch your way first. You shadow stuff in, and when you can shadow minutes upon minutes upon minutes of sketch in, the rest is just building it up and making it finished and producing it. And that kind of works out better than just working on like a small cue where you hit a wall after 40 seconds of that you've got to be out, and and then you start worrying about the detailing. You work pretty hard on small cues. So I do try to be clever about seeing if I can keep cues going. There was one film I did where I literally did wall to wall. You can sort of take breaks and do breathing in the different registers at low dynamics and appear to basically be non-present. So, it's never really a problem if you do need to score longer. You can continue a cue sometimes, or start earlier than you originally thought. But long cues are great. I like it. And, when you're working on those, you do want to try to stay grander as far as looking at the larger picture and create music that goes behind all the little things that are going on, instead of poking at every little thing and changing left, right, and trying to drive around Paris on the streets in Paris, taking too many turns. You want to try to stick to the main point and harp on that in the background, and everything else will just go right on by. Do I split my cues up as separate projects in your DAW or all in one before separating later? That is why I switched to Digital Performer 9, because you can have all your cues up at one time. In Logic, I would have to close the current cue and load up the next cue. And that's just, it takes like 7 minutes to switch cues when you do that in a DAW. But now with VE Pro 5 and with VRAX in Digital Performer, you can have all your sounds hosted outside the DAW, and switching between cues can be a little faster. But the great thing about Digital Performer 9 is you can have all your cues up at one time, and ideas and sketches and bits and pieces, all your sequences are up at one time on tap, and you can subsequence with them and merge and chop and copy, paste and rework and check out your material instantly. So Digital Performer 9 is great for that. I used to use Logic Pro, and way back in the day, I was a Studio Vision Pro user from Opcode Systems. What do you consider when negotiating a fee for a film? Hours, nature of music, flat fee? You want to start with your monthly rate. Okay? If you're getting hired on a studio picture, don't worry about it. Let the agent handle that, and you're going to make a lot of money and everything's going to be fine. Outside of that, the best advice I can give you is have a monthly rate. How much you must be paid to continue to exclusively work for them and not do anything else, hands tied, hiring an assistant to pay your bills and get you bagels, to exclusively hire you and strap you down working on their picture. How much are you going to charge them per month? Okay, that's the best way to think about it. And that's going to be different for everybody. But then that way, if it goes a month and a half, it's already expected that you're going to get more pay. You want to have your, home base. How much does it cost for you to be their slave per month rate? And think about what that is for you. Because there'll be other costs in there, like I said. If they want you to be working 100% on their film, that means you need somebody else to be doing all the other stuff you normally do for you. So that needs to be factored into your costs. Okay, let's move on to this question. How should I be paid? Half up front, half on delivery? There's all mannerisms. I do recommend if you're going to get less than half your normal rate, in other words, you're making a sacrifice, if you're going to get paid less than half your normal rate, then they should pay all of it up front because it's their fault for not being able to afford you. And you're already being gracious enough to compromise your rate and work on the picture. So they're going to need to pay all that money up front if they can't afford it. If it's less than your rate. I'd say if it's like half your rate and under. Now, as far as like when those milestone payments should come, if you're getting your normal rate or more, you want something exchanged for signing the contract. You want something exchanged for satisfactory delivery. You want a commencement of services payment. So there's 3 right there. And there can be other milestone payments along the way. You can set it up where, like I mentioned, every month you get the certain payments. Or when the score is 20% approved or 40% approved, you have milestone points. And you just spell that out in the language, A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in your contract. Are there agents who will represent starting composers? First of all, it helps you get a better agent if you already have a film that is about to be signed and you need the agent to work the final negotiations and stuff. And so then they're coming in, they're going to make money, and the picture is going to tell something about the quality of films that you can get. Then they're going to be more excited to represent you. The other agencies who will sign you exclusively will get you more work and will work harder for you. But they're not really going to sign you unless you are hot. Like you're a gimmick at that moment. That's the moment you should strike and get a good agent. Okay, well, I'm going to try posting this on YouTube. We'll try and do this again tomorrow or later tonight. Thank you, guys. All right, bye, Adam. Thanks for coming. See you again soon. All right. Okay, Preston. See you later.